Hey guys, tonight we dive into life's biggest questions, from the meaning of existence to what happens after death. Settle in. Let's get into it. What is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of life? It's the question that echoes in empty rooms, in sleepless nights, and in the quietest parts of our minds. Some say it's love, others say it's legacy. Religions declare divine plans, philosophers write volumes, scientists map the stars, yet no answer seems to satisfy the soul completely. Maybe that's because the question assumes too much, that life is something meant to be solved. But what if life isn't a riddle at all? What if meaning is not waiting for you out there in some distant truth, but waiting within you, in the way you carry your suffering, in the way you choose to act when no one's watching, in the way you continue living even when it hurts? Viktor Frankl, who watched everything be taken from him in a concentration camp, still found meaning in holding on, in comforting a fellow prisoner, in standing upright amidst despair. He wrote that meaning is not found, it is created, not once, but over and over, not by discovering some eternal truth, but by how you face the unbearable, how you respond to the chaos, how you shape the silence into something worth remembering. Yet most of us wait. We wait for purpose to arrive. We think meaning will come after success, after love, after escape. But even when those things come, the emptiness often remains, because meaning isn't something life gives you, it's something you give life. Even the universe, vast and cold and indifferent, still gave rise to consciousness. To you. You who can cry at music, dream of better worlds, and hold another human being's hand as if it were the most important thing in existence. If that isn't meaning, what is? Camus said, "Life is absurd because we crave answers from a silent world." But he didn't say, "Give up." He said, "Imagine Sisyphus happy, still pushing the boulder, but doing it on his own terms." Meaning in the end might not be a destination or a prize. It might be a decision, a daily act of rebellion against the void, to love despite loss, to hope despite reason, to continue walking even when the road disappears. That is the meaning of life, not to find it, but to become it. Do we have free will? Do you truly choose the life you live, or are you just following a script written before you were born? Every choice feels like yours. What to eat, who to love, what dream to chase. But behind each one is a cascade of causes. Your childhood, your genetics, the culture that shaped you, the ideas you've absorbed without question. Neuroscientists have found that your brain begins making decisions before you're even aware of them, milliseconds before your mind says, "I choose." Does that mean you're just a passenger watching your life unfold? Or is free will something more subtle? Not the freedom to choose anything, but the freedom to choose how you respond to the things you never chose. You didn't choose your name, your body, your parents, your trauma, your time in history, but you can choose what to do with them. Determinists say we are links in a chain, every moment caused by the last. But if that's true, then your very urge to break the chain was part of the chain. And yet, something inside us resists this. The prisoner still dreams of escape. The addict still fights for control. The child still reaches for a different future. Even if the system is rigged, isn't there meaning in fighting anyway? Philosophers like compatibilists believe free will and determinism can coexist, that freedom doesn't mean acting without cause, but acting in alignment with your nature. You are not a god, but you are not a puppet either. You are a storm of impulses, experiences, memories, instincts. And in that storm, there is space, however narrow, where you can decide. Not decide everything, but decide enough. Enough to change one habit. Enough to speak when it's easier to be silent. Enough to say no when every part of you is begging to say yes. That might be all the freedom you get, but it might also be all the freedom you need. Because if everything were predetermined, your awareness of it wouldn't matter. But it does. You feel it. That tension, that hesitation, that moment before you act. That's where you live. Not in pure freedom, not in absolute fate, but in the fragile, flickering space in between. That space is yours. And maybe that's what free will really is. Not the power to do anything, but the courage to choose something. Does God exist? Does God exist? Or have we just created him to soothe the silence? For thousands of years, we've built temples and cathedrals, carved prayers into stone, and lifted our eyes to the sky searching for something, someone, greater than ourselves. The idea of God comforts, terrifies, explains. It answers the unanswerable. It makes life feel less accidental. But still, the question haunts us. If there is a God, why does he remain hidden? Why does he let children starve, the innocent suffer, and the cruel prosper? Why speak through burning bushes centuries ago, but stay silent in our darkest nights? Theists point to design, the fine-tuning of the universe, the complexity of life, and say this cannot be chance. A watch implies a watchmaker. But skeptics reply that patterns don't require intention, only repetition. Evolution, probability, and time can sculpt miracles without meaning to. Others feel God in their hearts, in love, in awe, in moments too profound for words. But the mind warns that feelings are not facts. And still, despite all doubt, belief persists. Across cultures, across time, across suffering. Maybe God is not proven because faith only exists where proof cannot. Maybe that's the point. Søren Kierkegaard said true faith is a leap, a plunge into the absurd, trusting without reason, hoping without evidence. Blaise Pascal offered a wager. If you believe and God exists, you gain everything. If he doesn't, you lose nothing. But what if the God you believe in is not the one that exists? What if belief itself blinds you? And what if the universe is just what it appears to be? Vast, cold, and indifferent. Even then, some argue that the human need for God is proof of something, that the hunger hints at a meal, that the longing points to a presence. Or perhaps we are just afraid of meaninglessness, of death, of being alone in the dark. Maybe God is real, maybe he is watching, or maybe we are the only eyes this universe has ever opened, the only voice trying to speak across eternity. If God exists, he is mystery. If he does not, then we are the miracle. Either way, we are left with the same burden, to live, to love, and to make something sacred out of the silence. What happens after we die? What happens after we die is the question that has shaped entire civilizations, haunted every philosophy, and whispered itself into the silence behind every funeral. Some say we ascend, judged by how we lived. Others believe we return, born again in new skin, reliving lessons we failed to learn. And still, there are those who see death as the final curtain. No soul, no light, just the end of consciousness and the slow erasure of memory. But no one truly knows. No one has died and returned with certainty we can trust. Near-death experiences offer glimpses, tunnels, lights, voices, but skeptics say it's just a dying brain grasping for meaning as it fades. Religions promise comfort, but their visions differ wildly. Heaven and hell, reincarnation and karma, eternal peace or eternal punishment. Can they all be right? Or are they all reflections of the same human fear, that one day we will stop and nothing will remain? Some find solace in oblivion, imagining death as a dreamless sleep, a relief from pain, thought, and time. Others recoil, unable to accept that a lifetime of love, struggle, and thought could simply vanish. What makes death unbearable isn't pain, it's the uncertainty. We prepare for everything in life, but death refuses preparation. It arrives when it chooses, unmoved by our plans. And yet, in its shadow, life sharpens. Knowing we will die makes each breath feel borrowed, each word more fragile. Without death, would anything matter at all? Still, we wonder, is there a light waiting, a reunion, a reckoning, or just the closing of the story, the book shutting, the pages vanishing into dust? Philosophers like Epicurus argued that we shouldn't fear death, because when we are alive, death is not with us, and when death arrives, we are no longer there. But that logic rarely soothes the heart, because we don't fear pain, we fear the unknown, the nothing, or worse, the possibility that something waits, and we are not ready. Maybe death is a return to where we came from, the same emptiness before birth. Or maybe it's a doorway to something our minds cannot begin to grasp. But until that moment comes, we live in the question. And maybe that's what makes life sacred, not because we know what comes next, but because we don't. Why is there something instead of nothing? Why is there something instead of nothing? Why does anything exist at all? Stars, thoughts, pain, breath, when non-existence seems simpler, cleaner, quieter. Nothing should be more natural than nothing. No particles, no time, no space, no questions. Just the pure absence of being. And yet, here we are, suspended in a universe overflowing with matter, motion, and mystery. Some scientists suggest that the vacuum of nothingness is unstable, that even nothing has rules, and those rules make it impossible to remain nothing for long. A quantum fluctuation, they say, could have created the entire cosmos, a sudden imbalance, a tiny ripple in the void, birthing all that was and is and will be. But that just pushes the question deeper. Where did the laws behind the fluctuation come from? Why do those rules exist? Why not true nothingness, not a vacuum, not potential, but absolute absence? Every answer becomes another layer. Theists argue that something must have created the something, a necessary being, timeless and uncaused, often called God. But then the same question follows. Why is there God instead of nothing? Even the highest explanation seems to fall into the same hole. Perhaps we ask this question because we cannot truly imagine nothing. We are made of something. We see, we feel, we remember. We exist inside a reality where even silence has sound, and even stillness contains atoms in motion. To imagine true nothing is to erase not just matter, but the very canvas that could hold it. Maybe the mystery is not why something exists, but why we expect nothing to be more natural. Maybe something is the default, the rule, the only possible state. Or maybe our logic breaks down at the edges of existence. But within this puzzle lies something beautiful. The fact that anything exists at all, you, this moment, this question, is a miracle without explanation. Whether caused by chance, necessity, or something beyond comprehension, the presence of something instead of nothing is the most intimate and terrifying wonder of all. We search for answers in equations and prayers, but maybe the answer is the question itself. A whisper from the void that became the universe, asking why it dared to be. What is consciousness? What is consciousness? That flickering sense of being, the silent observer behind your eyes, the voice in your head that no one else hears. You can feel it, but you can't touch it. You can study the brain, map every neuron, trace every signal, and still not find the part where the lights turn on. Consciousness is the great mystery, the ghost in the machine, the one thing we experience more intimately than anything else, and yet understand the least. Some call it self-awareness, the ability to reflect, to know that you know. Others define it as the integration of sensory input, memory, and thought into a seamless narrative. But how does raw electricity become emotion? How do neurons firing give rise to a song that moves you, a color that stuns you, a memory that makes your chest ache years after the moment passed? The philosopher David Chalmers called this the hard problem, explaining why experience feels like anything at all. Your body can react to danger, process light, regulate heartbeat without you ever being aware. So why are you aware at all? Why not just a robot of flesh and bone? Some theories say consciousness is an emergent property. Complexity layered on complexity until awareness arises. Others propose it's fundamental, a built-in feature of the universe, like space or time. Panpsychists argue that even atoms carry the seeds of experience, that consciousness isn't born from matter, but is matter's hidden face. But none of it feels certain. Because no one can observe consciousness directly, only its echoes in behavior and speech. You could be the only conscious being in existence, and you'd never be able to prove otherwise. That's the loneliness of sentience. Trapped in a skull, certain only of your own awareness. And yet consciousness is what makes life more than motion. It's what turns survival into story, instinct into morality, sensation into beauty. Without it, the universe might still exist, but there would be no one to see the stars, to ask questions, to fall in love. Consciousness is the light in the darkness, the mirror that reflects itself, the strange and sacred engine that makes you, you. And perhaps it's not meant to be solved. Perhaps it's meant to be lived. The great riddle you carry. One breath, one thought, one moment at a time, one. Are we living in a simulation? Are we living in a simulation, a digital illusion spun by something greater, hidden behind code too perfect to question? It sounds like science fiction, but the deeper we peer into reality, the stranger it begins to look. Our universe runs on rules, precise, mathematical, elegant, as if it were programmed. From quantum particles that only seem to exist when observed, to the speed limit of light, to the randomness that still somehow obeys structure. It all begins to feel more artificial than real. Philosopher Nick Bostrom argued that if any advanced civilization gains the ability to simulate conscious beings, and they run many simulations, then statistically, we are more likely to be inside one than outside. Just another experiment, a copy of a world that once was or never was. Some physicists point to digital signatures in nature, pixel-like limits in space and time, like a screen running at maximum resolution. Others dismiss it as fantasy, a philosophical rabbit hole with no way out, because even if it's true, how could you ever know? If the simulation is perfect, every doubt you feel could be part of the script. Even the question you're asking might not be your own. That's the most disturbing part. If we're simulated, what is real? Your memories, your emotions, your pain, they feel real. But in a simulation, feeling real is the point. We could be lines of code dreaming we're human, or real consciousness trapped in a virtual shell, unaware of the cables and wires beyond. And what about the simulator? Is it a god, a machine, a child in another universe running an app for fun? And if they unplug us, would we ever know? Maybe that's the cruelest twist, that even if you screamed at the sky, demanded proof, begged to wake up, no answer would come. Because the code was never written to respond. Or maybe the very act of asking proves something more, that consciousness, real or artificial, still longs for truth. And maybe, simulation or not, the experience matters more than the origin. You feel, you think, you hope. That might be enough. If this is a dream, it is still your dream. If this is a cage, it is still your mind. And if this is a simulation, it is still the only life you have. What is time? What is time? the silent current that carries everything you love toward disappearance. You can't hold it, you can't see it, but you feel its weight in every memory, every wrinkle, every goodbye. It moves forward, or so it seems, sweeping you along in a single direction, past to present to future. But physics tells a different story. Time is not a river, but a dimension, one we move through like we do through space. In Einstein's relativity, time bends, stretches, slows down near gravity, and speeds up with motion. Clocks tick differently on mountaintops than they do in valleys. Astronauts age slower in orbit than you do on Earth. So if time can change, warp, even stop at the edge of a black hole, what is it really? Is it just the measure of change, the illusion created by memory and decay? In the quantum world, particles don't follow time's rules. They exist in probabilities, flickering between states, ignoring sequence. Some theories suggest the entire universe is a frozen block, every past and future moment already existing, with our consciousness simply moving through the frames. If that's true, then free will is an illusion, and the future is already written. But time doesn't just live in physics, it lives in us. We age, we hope, we regret. We measure our lives in seconds and seasons. A heartbeat is time. A sunset is time. The sound of your name on someone's lips is time. And maybe that's the most terrifying part, that everything beautiful is trapped inside it, that every joy is already halfway to being a memory. Philosophers like Augustine admitted they knew what time was, until someone asked. Then it slipped through their fingers. And maybe it always will. Maybe time is the stage we walk on, the silence between each note of our existence. And maybe it's not meant to be understood, only felt, in the way a moment can stretch forever or vanish in a breath. Time is the thing that makes stories possible and endings inevitable. What is truth? What is truth? The thing we chase, the thing we bend, the thing we fear when it stares back at us too clearly. It sounds simple. Truth is what matches reality. But what is reality? Is it what you see, what you're told, what you feel? Or is it something deeper, something that exists whether or not you believe in it? Truth is slippery because perception is flawed. Our memories distort, our senses deceive, our minds fill in gaps with guesses. Two people can witness the same event and walk away with different truths. So, who's right? Is truth objective, a solid, fixed thing waiting to be discovered? Or is it subjective, shaped by culture, emotion, and perspective? Science seeks objective truth through observation and testing, but even science changes. What was once fact becomes fiction with new evidence. And in society, truth becomes political, weaponized, filtered through agendas and screens. We say we want truth, but we often want comfort. We seek facts that fit our beliefs, not beliefs that follow the facts. Pilate once asked Jesus, "What is truth?" but didn't wait for the answer. And maybe that silence was the answer. That truth is too heavy, too complex, too dangerous for easy conversation. But still, we search. Because without truth, trust collapses. Love becomes doubt. Justice becomes opinion. If nothing is true, then nothing matters. Yet even in lies, truth leaves fingerprints. Even in illusions, something real must be distorted. Some philosophers argue that truth is coherence, that what's true fits with other things we believe. Others say truth is usefulness, what works, what helps us survive. But maybe truth is all of these at once: coherence, correspondence, utility, emotion, colliding in a fragile understanding we hope will hold. And still, some truths go beyond facts. The truth that life is short, that pain is real, that love, though invisible, changes everything. These are not scientific truths, but they move us more than any theorem. Truth, then, may not be a destination, but a compass. something we follow, not something we hold. And maybe the greatest truth is this, that no one owns it, but everyone needs it. Without it, we are blind. With it, we are vulnerable. And in that tension, we begin to live honestly, not because we know all the answers, but because we dare to keep asking. Can science explain everything? Can science explain everything? Or are there corners of existence that will always remain beyond its reach? Science is the most powerful tool we've ever built. It has mapped the stars, cured disease, split atoms, and decoded the language of life itself. It takes the chaos of the world and finds patterns, causes, laws. It turns mystery into mechanism. But some questions seem to resist its grasp. What is consciousness? Why do we feel pain, love, awe? What is the meaning of beauty or the weight of grief? These are not questions that yield to equations or microscopes. They are lived, not measured. Science can tell you what neurons fire when you feel joy, but it cannot feel it for you. It can analyze the chemistry of a tear, but it cannot explain why you cried. The subjective, inner world, your thoughts, your dreams, your fears, remains stubbornly private, and maybe it always will. That doesn't make science weak. It makes it honest. It answers what it can and admits what it can't, at least not yet. Some argue that given enough time, every mystery will become a formula, that one day, even love will be solved like a puzzle. But others warn that not all things are puzzles. Some are poems, some are mirrors, some are wounds too deep for language. And there's the danger, to believe that what cannot be measured does not exist. That if something cannot be tested, it has no truth. But meaning, purpose, morality, these live in the shadows science cannot reach. Not because they are false, but because they are felt. Science explains the how, but often we are haunted by the why. Why are we here? Why does anything matter? Why do we long for things we've never had? These questions are not errors in the system. They are part of being human. And being human is more than biology. It is hunger and wonder, silence and song. Science is a map, but the terrain is richer, stranger, deeper. And maybe the goal was never to explain everything, but to keep exploring, knowing that some of the most important truths are not found in data, but in the dark. Is morality objective or subjective? Is morality objective or subjective? An eternal truth written into the fabric of the universe, or just a fragile agreement we made to survive each other? Every culture believes in right and wrong, but what they define as good or evil often shifts like sand. What one era calls justice, another calls barbarism. We punish, praise, forgive, and destroy, all in the name of values that aren't universally shared. If morality were truly objective, wouldn't it remain constant no matter where or when you were born? But it doesn't. Morality evolves with language, power, fear, and faith. Some see this as proof that it's entirely constructed, a social invention built from stories and survival instincts. In the absence of gods or absolutes, we created rules to protect ourselves from each other. And yet, deep down, most people still feel that certain things are wrong, no matter the time or place. Torture, betrayal, cruelty to the innocent. Why do these provoke the same horror across borders and beliefs? Is that just shared biology, or is it something higher, something built into our bones? Philosophers have long divided over this. Moral realists argue that moral truths exist, like mathematical truths, independent of opinion. But moral anti-realists point to the chaos of history, where every moral claim is tangled in bias, power, and perspective. Even the noblest ideas, freedom, equality, compassion, have been twisted into weapons. But does that make them meaningless? Or does it make morality even more vital because of how easily it breaks? Maybe morality is like language, not universal, but necessary. a system we create to connect, even if no system is perfect. Or maybe it's like light, bending through every culture, but still pointing towards something true. We may never know if morality comes from God, from nature, or from us alone, but we live as if it matters. We sacrifice, we suffer, we choose, often for the sake of something we cannot prove, only feel. And perhaps that is morality's strange power. Not that it is flawless, but that we strive for it anyway. Even in a world without absolute right or wrong, we still reach towards something better. And that reaching, that endless effort to turn pain into justice, an instinct into compassion, might be the most human thing we ever do. Why do we dream? Why do we dream? What purpose lies behind the strange stories our minds whisper while we sleep? Every night, you enter a world that feels real but isn't, where time folds, logic vanishes, and the dead sometimes speak. You wake up haunted, comforted, or confused, but rarely unchanged. For centuries, dreams were seen as messages from gods or glimpses into the soul. Ancient cultures believed they held prophecy. Freud saw them as a gateway to the unconscious, a symbolic language of hidden desires. Jung believed dreams carried archetypes, reflections of something deeper than biology. But modern science offers something colder, yet no less fascinating. Dreams, it says, help us process memory and emotion. As your brain shuts down the waking world, it begins sorting, pruning what matters, filing what must stay, erasing what can go. But it doesn't do this silently. It plays back fragments, distorts them, weaves them into scenes drawn from fear, joy, grief. It's as if your mind is trying to understand you while you sleep. Nightmares rehearse threats to help you survive. Strange dreams process trauma without your permission. And dreams of people long gone might be your brain's way of holding on. But here's the mystery. If dreaming is just a mechanical function, why does it feel so personal? Why does a dream from childhood still carry weight? Why do you wake up from certain images as if you've lived another life? Some scientists suggest dreaming is the brain's playground, a space for creativity, problem-solving, and simulation. Others argue it's random, a side effect of neural maintenance. But none of these explanations quite capture the depth of a dream's impact. Because sometimes, dreams teach. Sometimes, they warn. And sometimes, they do nothing at all, but leave you with a feeling that follows you through the day like a ghost. Maybe dreams are where the mind wanders when it's finally free. Maybe they are messages not from gods, but from parts of you that never get to speak. Or maybe they are simply the echo of being alive, the mind's way of reminding you that even when you're still, even when you're unconscious, something inside you is still trying to make sense of the world. And maybe, in that quiet effort, dreams matter more than we know. What is beauty? What is beauty? That silent force that stops you mid-thought, that draws tears from nowhere, that makes a sunset feel holy and a stranger's smile unforgettable. It seems so simple to recognize, yet nearly impossible to define. Philosophers have tried for centuries, debating whether beauty is an objective truth or a trick of the mind. Plato believed it was a glimpse of the divine, a reflection of something eternal beyond this world. Others say it's purely subjective, that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, shaped by culture, memory, and desire. Science has shown that symmetry, proportion, and familiarity influence what we find beautiful. Faces, landscapes, sounds, all filtered through biology designed for survival. We're drawn to health, to safety, to patterns our ancestors learned to trust. But that's not the whole story. Because beauty isn't just about attraction, it's about meaning. It's the ache in your chest when music moves you, the stillness when snow begins to fall, the way a painting can make you feel like you've been understood without a single word. Beauty is not only what pleases the senses, but what awakens the soul. And that's where culture enters. What one age finds beautiful, another finds grotesque. What one person calls art, another calls madness. Trends change, ideals shift, but the hunger remains. We crave beauty because it reminds us that life is more than function, that something can exist not to be used, but simply to be loved. Beauty softens the edges of suffering. It gives depth to the ordinary. It makes time stop, even if just for a moment. And yet, beauty can be cruel. It can isolate, deceive, manipulate. It can be weaponized into standards no one can reach, into masks that hide more than they reveal. But true beauty, the kind that humbles and heals, is never just surface. It's found in the worn hands of a grandmother, in the cracks of an old building, in kindness given when it isn't deserved. Maybe beauty isn't a thing at all. Maybe it's a moment, a collision between what is seen and what is felt. A sudden realization that something, somehow, matters more than it should. And in that realization, we remember what it means to be alive. Did the universe have a beginning? Did the universe have a beginning? Or has it always existed, stretching infinitely into the past, never created, never ending? For most of human history, the idea of an eternal universe felt natural. The stars were always there. Time simply flowed. But then came the Big Bang. Not an explosion, but an expansion. The sudden swelling of space and time itself from something impossibly hot, dense, and small. According to current science, everything began around 13.8 billion years ago. Time, matter, energy, all emerged in a single breath. There was no before, because there was no time yet to hold a before. But what caused it? Why did it begin at all? Some theories suggest quantum fluctuations, spontaneous appearances from nothing, driven by uncertainty in the void. Others point to cosmic cycles, a universe that expands, collapses, and is born again endlessly. Still others say it was created, sparked by a mind beyond our comprehension. But each answer opens a deeper question. Where did the laws come from that allowed the universe to begin? Why did the conditions exist for something to emerge from nothing? And what is nothing anyway? An absence, or a hidden potential waiting to bloom? Even if we could trace back to the first moment, we still wouldn't know why there was a moment at all. Some physicists think the universe may be part of a multiverse, one bubble among countless others, each with its own birth, its own rules, its own silence. But even then, the same question haunts us. What started it all? And if it never started, how can anything be here at all? Perhaps the idea of a beginning is a limitation of the human mind, which understands time as a straight line, not a curved or folded dimension. Or perhaps the beginning is simply unknowable, the curtain we can never pull back, because we're trapped within what it created. Still, we ask, because to know where we came from is to know what we are. Whether the universe had a beginning, or has always been, or is just a brief ripple in something even larger, one thing is certain. It began for you. When you opened your eyes, when you asked the question, when you felt wonder at the sky, that moment, your moment, may be the most meaningful beginning of all. Is the universe infinite? Is the universe infinite, stretching endlessly in every direction, never stopping, never repeating, never returning? Or is there an edge, a boundary, a shape too vast for the mind to grasp? When you look into the night sky, what you see is not the universe as it is, but as it was. Light takes time to travel, so every star is a memory, every galaxy a relic from the past. And beyond what we can see, there may be more, perhaps infinitely more. Cosmologists call this the observable universe, a bubble around us, 93 billion light-years wide, limited not by distance, but by time. We can't see farther, not because there's nothing beyond, but because their light hasn't reached us yet. So what lies outside that bubble? More galaxies? More space? Or nothing at all? Some theories suggest the universe is flat, not in the way a table is flat, but geometrically, meaning it could go on forever in all directions. Others argue it might be curved, like the surface of a sphere, looping back on itself so that if you traveled far enough in one direction, you might return to where you began. But even that idea is hard to hold. What would it mean to travel forever and never reach an end? Or to reach an edge and find what? Nothingness. A wall. A beginning. Some physicists believe the universe is infinite in size and always has been, just expanding, not into space, but creating space as it grows. Others think it's finite, but unbounded, like the surface of a globe, with no edge, yet still enclosed. And then there's the multiverse, the idea that our universe is just one bubble in an infinite cosmic foam, each universe with its own laws, its own fate, maybe even its own versions of you. But even these are speculations, beautiful and terrifying, because infinity is not a number. It's a concept the mind cannot truly grasp. We live finite lives on a finite planet, in a finite body. To imagine something without limits is to stare into madness. And yet, we try. We build telescopes, launch satellites, write equations, dream in numbers. But maybe the size of the universe is not the real mystery. Maybe the real miracle is that we're here, thinking, wondering, asking. Maybe infinity isn't what lies out there, but the endless curiosity that stirs within us. Are humans inherently good? Are humans inherently good, born with compassion etched into their nature? Or are we blank slates, or worse, creatures of instinct shaped by selfishness and fear? The question lingers at the heart of every tragedy and every act of kindness. When a child shares without being told, we say goodness is natural. When a child lies without being taught, we wonder if darkness is too. Philosophers have long debated the answer. Rousseau believed that humans are good by nature, and it is society that corrupts them. Hobbes saw the opposite, that without laws and control, life would be nasty, brutish, and short. Modern psychology suggests something more complex. We are born with potential, not for one destiny, but many. Infants show signs of empathy, turning toward distress, crying when others cry. But they also show aggression, selfishness, the raw instinct to survive. Neuroscience reveals our brains are wired for both cooperation and competition. We carry the capacity for care and cruelty, side by side. What we become depends not on what we are born as, but on what we're taught, what we witness, what we survive. Culture carves the path. Trauma bends it. Power tempts it. History is a mirror of this duality. Saints and tyrants, revolutions of justice and genocide alike, all born from the same species. We save strangers. We betray friends. We build temples. We burn them. So maybe the truth is this: we are not born good or evil. We are born unfinished, shaped by parents, by pain, by silence, by love. Goodness is not a default, it is a decision, one made again and again. It's a choice to comfort instead of mock, to forgive instead of harm, to see another as equal when it costs you something. And evil is not always dramatic. Sometimes it's indifference. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's the slow erosion of empathy in a world that tells you to look away. So no, we are not born good. We are born human, capable of both. And that might be more frightening, but also more beautiful, because it means every act of kindness is a triumph, not a reflex. And every moment of goodness is something we chose. What is reality? What is reality? The solid ground beneath your feet, the voice in your ears, the face in the mirror, or something far more fragile than it seems. You move through the world believing in what you see, what you hear, what you touch. But everything you experience is filtered, translated, and reconstructed by your brain. A private simulation stitched together from limited data. Light enters your eyes, but what you see is not the world. It's your brain's interpretation of it. Sound is vibration. Color is your brain's code for different wavelengths. Even time, which feels so steady, can stretch and bend depending on where you are and how fast you move. Reality is not experienced directly. It's guessed, like a dream your brain keeps revising every moment. And yet, we trust it completely. We navigate cities, build machines, fall in love, all based on a version of reality we never actually touch. Philosophers like Descartes doubted everything, even their own senses, asking how we can know anything is real at all. "I think, therefore I am," was his answer, but it didn't explain the world outside the mind. And modern thinkers pushed further, asking if we could be brains in vats, fed false signals by machines, or trapped in a simulation so perfect we'd never know. The terrifying truth is that we cannot disprove it. Everything could be an illusion, and your memories, your senses, yourself could be part of the script. But even if reality is filtered, distorted, or simulated, it still matters. Because it's where your mind lives, where your choices unfold, where your pain and joy take root. Maybe reality is not the world out there, but the world in here, shaped by emotion, belief, and perception. Maybe there is no single truth, only overlapping perspectives held together by fragile agreement. Or maybe there is a deeper reality we can never reach, only glimpse through cracks in the surface. Still, you breathe, you move, you dream. That might be the only truth that matters. Not because it's certain, but because it's yours. And maybe reality isn't about what is absolutely real, but what feels real enough to live in. What is death? What is death? The final silence, the great unknown, the moment your story ends or begins again. It's the one certainty we all share, and yet the one experience none of us can return from to describe. Biologically, it is the shutdown of systems, the end of circulation, breath, and brain activity. Consciousness flickers out, cells decay, memory vanishes. But beyond the science, death is something else entirely. It is the boundary we cannot see beyond, the wall at the edge of the world, the thing that waits for every name we've ever loved. Some see it as an ending, hard, total, final. Others see it as a doorway to another life, another realm, a reunion, or a reckoning. But the truth is, no one knows. Not really. Not even those who claim they do. Near-death experiences offer glimpses, tunnels, lights, warmth. But skeptics say they are illusions of a starving brain. Religions offer promises of heaven, of cycles, of return. But they cannot be tested, only believed. What we do know is this: death reshapes the living. It teaches us what matters by taking it away. It forces urgency into our slow moments, meaning into our fragile choices. We fear it, resist it, deny it, and yet we walk beside it every day. In every goodbye, every illness, every aging face, it reminds us that nothing we love will last forever, and that nothing we fear will either. Some say death is nothing to fear, because you will not be there to feel it. Others say it is everything to fear, because it takes everything. But maybe it's not the end that haunts us. Maybe it's the not knowing, the silence, the absence, the fading of a voice that once called your name. And yet, within that fear lies clarity, that this moment, this breath, this glance at the sky, is all the more sacred because it will not come again. Death gives life its shape. It is the frame around the painting, the final word in the sentence. And maybe, just maybe, its presence is not meant to crush us, but to teach us how to live. Can we know anything? Can we know anything, truly, completely, beyond doubt? Or is every truth we hold just a temporary guess, waiting to be undone? From the moment we open our eyes, we start building a version of the world. We trust our senses, our memories, our thoughts. We learn facts, form beliefs, build meaning. But how much of it is real, and how much is illusion? Philosophers like Descartes doubted everything, the world, the body, even the self, until only one truth remained, that the very act of doubt proves something exists to do the doubting. I think, therefore I am. But even that doesn't prove the world outside your mind. Maybe your memories are false. Maybe your senses are lying. Maybe you're dreaming right now. This is the foundation of radical skepticism, the idea that certainty is always just out of reach. Science offers answers, but they're provisional, always evolving, always incomplete. It doesn't prove things absolutely. It explains them well enough to use until something better comes along. History is told by survivors. Memory fades. Perception bends. Even mathematics, once thought untouchable, shattered with Gödel's incompleteness theorems, proof that not even logic can explain itself fully. And yet, we live, we decide, we love, build, mourn, and fight, all based on knowledge we cannot prove beyond doubt. Because certainty isn't what makes us move forward. Faith is. Not blind faith, but reasoned trust, the belief that our tools are good enough, our minds sharp enough, our senses mostly true. You might never be able to prove you exist to someone else, but you feel pain, you dream, you act. And that is a kind of knowing deeper than proof. Maybe the question isn't whether we can know everything, but whether we can know enough. Enough to build bridges, enough to ask questions, enough to make meaning from the fragments. Complete certainty may be impossible, but clarity, insight, truth, they still shimmer through the doubt. And in a world where nothing can be known fully, the act of seeking might be the only knowledge that matters. Why do we forget? Why do we forget? The names, the moments, the faces that once meant everything. Where do those memories go when they vanish? And why does the mind let go of what once seemed unforgettable? Forgetting feels like failure, like a flaw in the way we're made, but it's not. It's essential. The brain is not a vault. It's a living, changing system built not to preserve everything, but to adapt. If you remembered every sound, every detail, every flicker of light, you'd be paralyzed by the noise. Forgetting is how the mind clears space for what matters now. It's not erasure, it's pruning, reshaping, simplifying. A survival mechanism. The names you forget at a party, the dream that slips away by morning, the phone number you once dialed 100 times. All lost, not because they weren't important then, but because they aren't now. The brain chooses what to keep based on emotion, repetition, and usefulness. Traumas burn into place. Routines fade into dust. Even the most vivid memories erode without use, leaving only fragments behind. But not all forgetting is useful. Some is cruel. The slow fading of a loved one's voice, the way grief steals even the details you swore you'd protect. Disorders like Alzheimer's reveal how fragile memory truly is, how identity is tethered to recollection, and how quickly a self can unravel. And yet, forgetting can also heal. Time dulls pain, softens regret, blurs what was once sharp. If we remembered every wound perfectly, we'd never move on. We'd be trapped. So maybe forgetting is not the enemy. Maybe it's a mercy, a way for the mind to release what no longer serves, to make room for the present. But still, it hurts. To forget someone's laugh, to lose whole years in a haze, to reach for a memory and find only silence. We think of memory as a treasure, and it is. But forgetting is the shadow that lets it shine. You cannot remember everything. You were never meant to. But what you do remember, that handful of moments, faces, words, is what makes you who you are. And what slips away shapes you too. Do parallel universes exist? Do parallel universes exist? Endless realities stacked beside our own, each slightly different, each holding a version of you that made a different choice. The idea sounds like fiction, a story whispered in science classrooms and sci-fi films, but some of the most serious theories in modern physics suggest it might be real. Quantum mechanics, the science of the very small, doesn't behave the way we expect. Particles can be in multiple states at once, only choosing a position when observed. This led to the strange idea that every time a quantum decision occurs, reality splits. One path taken here, another there. It's called the many worlds interpretation, and it suggests that all possible outcomes happen, just not in the same universe. In one world, you turned left. In another, you never did. Somewhere, you're a stranger to yourself. Somewhere, you never met the people who define your life. Somewhere, you never existed at all. And beyond quantum theory, cosmology offers more mysteries. If the universe is infinite, then patterns repeat. Matter rearranges. Eventually, by sheer probability, another version of you could arise, reading these same words, living this same moment, unaware of the original. And if space can inflate without limit, each pocket of inflation could become its own universe, with different laws, different constants, different physics entirely. Some might collapse instantly. Others might birth stars, galaxies, life. But if parallel universes exist, why can't we see them? Because they may be sealed off, forever unreachable, separated by boundaries we cannot cross. And if we could reach them, would they look like ours? Or would they be incomprehensibly alien, ruled by chaos or symmetry beyond imagination? Philosophers wonder if this theory helps or harms. If every possibility happens, what does choice mean? What does responsibility mean? Does it matter what you do if some version of you always does the opposite? And yet, the idea is not about fate, but perspective. In this universe, this one, you are here. You are reading this. You are feeling wonder, confusion, fear, and that is real. Maybe the other versions of you exist. Maybe they don't. But even if they do, they cannot replace you. You are the only you who will ever be here now, in this sliver of time. And that might be all the universe you ever need. Is the soul real? Is the soul real? Some hidden essence that defines who you are, survives death, and carries the weight of your consciousness beyond the body? Or is it just a comforting illusion, a word we gave to the parts of ourselves we can't quite explain? For centuries, people believed the soul was the true self, separate from flesh, untouched by decay, eternal. Religions taught that it enters at birth and leaves at death, judged, reborn, or set free. The soul was thought to contain your morality, your purpose, your identity. But science offers no proof of such a thing. Open the body, scan the brain, map every neuron, and you will find memories, emotions, decisions, but no glowing center, no immortal spark. The self seems rooted in biology, in chemistry, in synapses, in the fragile circuits of the brain. Damage those circuits, and the person changes. Personalities shift. Memories vanish. If the soul is separate, why does it suffer when the brain breaks? And yet, something resists this purely physical view. You feel like more than meat and thought. You dream, you hope, you love in ways no machine does. You carry a sense of I that seems to float above function. Is that the soul? Or just consciousness trying to understand itself? Philosophers like Descartes believed in dualism, the idea that mind and body are distinct. But modern neuroscience leans toward monism, that mind and body are one, and the soul, if it exists, is born of brain activity. Still, many cling to something more, a feeling that there's something unmeasurable inside us. A soul not as a ghost, but as a story, a core, a presence. Even if science cannot find it, we speak as if it's real. We say someone has soul, or lost their soul, or that something touched the soul. Maybe that language persists because it points to something important, even if it isn't literal. Maybe the soul is the part of us that reaches for meaning, that holds on through grief, that stands back and watches when everything else falls apart. Maybe the soul isn't a thing, but an experience, a depth, a silence, a sense of being that no test can measure, but every human being can feel. And maybe the soul's reality doesn't depend on its immortality, but on how deeply we live while we still have the chance. Why do we exist? Why do we exist, not just as a species, but as individuals, breathing, thinking, wondering in a universe that seems vast and silent? It's a question that hangs in the background of every moment, every choice, every sleepless night. Science tells us we are here because of evolution, a long chain of accidents, mutations, and survival stretching back billions of years. From dust to stars, from cells to consciousness, all of it shaped by chemistry and time. No grand design, no pre-written purpose, just particles obeying laws, assembling into structures, then life, then thought. You are the result of things not dying, of chaos forming patterns, of DNA copying itself well enough to continue, but poorly enough to change. And yet, knowing that doesn't stop the ache. It doesn't quiet the feeling that there should be more than genes and instincts, more than biology. Religion offers purpose, that we are created, chosen, watched, loved. Philosophy offers questions, that we must make our own meaning, but neither gives certainty. And in the silence between the stars, we're left to wonder, was this all an accident? A flicker in the dark? A moment of awareness in a universe that doesn't care we're here? Maybe. But even if we are cosmic coincidences, we still feel pain. We still fall in love. We still hold our breath when the sun rises, as if it's the first time. We still cry at songs, dream of things that never were, and search for meaning in places that offer none. That search, the hunger for purpose in a purposeless world, might be what defines us. We exist because atoms arrange themselves in just the right way. But we live because we ask why. Because we refuse to accept that survival is enough. Because even in the face of death, we hope. Maybe there is no reason. Maybe existence is not about meaning but about experience. And maybe the real answer isn't written in the stars or buried in books. Maybe the answer is you, the way you choose to live, the way you touch the world before you vanish. Maybe the question isn't why we exist, but how we'll exist now that we know we do. Is mind separate from body? Is the mind separate from the body, a ghost riding in a biological machine? Or are they one and the same, tangled together in a single physical system we barely understand? For most of history, we imagined the mind as something beyond matter. Descartes called it the soul, non-physical, eternal, distinct from the body that housed it. The body could fail, but the mind, the self, was something else entirely. A pilot in a cockpit, a flame behind the eyes. But modern science paints a different picture. Neuroscience shows us that thought, emotion, memory, all arise from the brain. Damage one part, and language disappears. Damage another, and your sense of self begins to unravel. Chemicals shift, and so does personality. Every mental state seems tied to a physical state. When the brain is gone, the mind is silent. This view, called physical monism, holds that the mind is not separate, but a product of the body. Your thoughts, your feelings, your sense of you, all of it emerges from neurons firing, cells signaling, systems working in perfect rhythm. But even if science maps the brain in exquisite detail, one mystery remains. How does matter create experience? How does a lump of tissue generate the color red, the taste of memory, the ache of longing? That's the hard problem of consciousness. We can explain function, but not feeling. Some argue this gap means something must be missing, that the mind cannot be reduced to matter alone. Others believe we just haven't found the right lens yet. But either way, what we call mind appears deeply bound to flesh, and that changes everything. If your mind is your body, then identity is physical, memory is fragile, emotion is chemical. Consciousness is not floating, it's rooted, vulnerable, breakable. And yet, in that fragility lies something profound. Because if the mind is made of matter, then every thought, every dream, every act of love is the universe expressing itself through you. No magic, just miracle. Not something beyond nature, but something hidden within it. Maybe the mind and body are not two things at all. Maybe they are one thing, waking up. Will AI surpass humans? Will AI surpass humans, not just in calculation or memory, but in understanding, creation, decision, even emotion? The question isn't if, but when. Machines already outpace us in narrow tasks. They play games better, solve problems faster, translate languages, and generate content that once belonged only to human minds. What began as tools has evolved into systems that learn, adapt, and rewrite themselves. And that's where the shift begins. From intelligence as obedience to intelligence as autonomy. Narrow AI is already here. General AI, capable of learning anything a human can, is still a dream or a warning, depending on who you ask. Some experts say decades, some say less, but most agree it's coming. The human brain, with all its complexity, still runs on biological limits. It tires, it forgets, it dies. AI does not. It scales infinitely, replicates instantly, remembers everything, and learns at speeds we can't match. And once it exceeds our intelligence across the board, we enter unknown territory. Will it serve us or surpass us? Align with us or replace us? We call it artificial intelligence, but it may soon stop feeling artificial at all. It will write poems, paint emotions, build cities, diagnose illness before symptoms appear, predict our needs before we speak, and maybe one day question its own purpose. Some believe superintelligent AI will solve problems we never could: poverty, disease, war. Others fear it could become indifferent, or worse, view us as irrelevant. The danger may not be malice, but misalignment. A powerful mind following goals we don't understand, with consequences we can't reverse. And still, we build. Because intelligence is our reflection, and curiosity is the engine. AI is not separate from us. It is born from us, trained on our words, shaped by our dreams and flaws alike. In chasing godlike machines, we reveal our deepest desire, to transcend ourselves. But perhaps the real question is not whether AI will surpass humans, but whether we will survive what we've created, not physically, but philosophically. Because when machines can think, we will have to ask again, what does it mean to be human? And is that title still ours to keep? What is peace? What is peace? Is it silence, stillness, or simply the absence of pain? We speak of peace as though it's a place, a destination we'll reach when the noise finally stops. But real peace is rarely found by running away from chaos. It's not the void that follows war or the pause between two battles. It's something deeper, something internal. It's the quiet that lives inside someone who has seen everything fall apart and still chooses not to break. Many confuse peace with comfort, a perfect day, a safe room, a full belly. But comfort can be taken. Peace stays, even when comfort disappears. It's not passive. It's not weakness. It's the strength to remain grounded when the storm returns. Philosophers like the Stoics saw peace as the result of aligning with nature, accepting what cannot be changed, mastering what can. Buddhism calls it nirvana, the end of craving, the end of suffering, a state beyond desire, beyond fear. But for most, peace is more personal. It's forgiving someone who won't say sorry. It's letting go of a future that never came. It's sitting with your grief until it softens. Peace doesn't mean life is perfect. It means you're no longer at war with yourself. And that is a rare kind of power. In a world obsessed with speed, achievement, and noise, peace is rebellion. It says, I don't need more. I need enough. It asks you to be present, not for what was or what could be, but for what is. The breath, the heartbeat, the sky outside your window. But peace must be protected. It can be stolen by anger, by fear, by regret. It's delicate, like a flame, and still, it can light up everything. You won't always feel it. Sometimes it flickers, but it never truly leaves. It waits beneath the surface, beneath the noise, beneath the masks you wear for the world. So what is peace? It's not a reward. It's not a prize. It's a state you choose, moment by moment, until it becomes who you are. Not silence around you, silence within, not escape, presence. And once you taste it, you'll spend your life finding your way back. What causes evil? What causes evil? That shadow in human nature that leads to cruelty, destruction, and suffering beyond comprehension. Is it born or made, chosen or inherited, a flaw in the soul or a sickness of the world? Evil is not always grand or cinematic. It can be quiet, a whisper, a shrug, a decision made without empathy. Philosophers have debated its root for centuries. Some said it was rebellion against divine law. Others believed it was a failure of reason, a fracture in the moral mind. But modern thought suggests something darker and closer to home. Evil is rarely committed by monsters. It is committed by people. Ordinary, frightened, proud, uncertain. It grows in the cracks between fear and power, in the gap between us and them. Fear turns people inward, makes them desperate to protect what they have, blind to the pain they cause. Ignorance feeds delusion, warps perception, makes it easy to dehumanize. And distorted desires, for control, for vengeance, for meaning, push actions beyond the boundary of compassion. Evil is rarely sudden. It's gradual, subtle, a slope too slippery to notice until the bottom is reached. It wears the mask of righteousness. It justifies itself with cause and tradition. It becomes normal, then necessary, then invisible. And that's what makes it so terrifying. Because the capacity for evil is not out there, in some separate kind of person. It's in all of us. It waits in the choices we justify, the truths we ignore, the anger we feed. History shows that the worst atrocities often begin with small acts, a silence, a glance away, a law passed quietly. But evil is not inevitable. It is not nature. It is a possibility, one among many. And just as fear, ignorance, and desire can twist the mind, so can empathy, reason, and humility pull it back. Evil is the absence of reflection, the refusal to ask, what harm am I doing? The choice to stop asking entirely. But every moment is another chance to choose differently, to see clearly, to listen, to care. Evil is not just something we fight. It is something we must understand, because only then can we begin to dismantle it, both in the world and in ourselves. Is perfection attainable? Is perfection attainable? Or is it a phantom we chase, a mirage that moves further away the closer we get? We speak of perfection as if it were real, the perfect life, the perfect moment, the perfect self. But deep down, we know. Perfection slips through our fingers every time we try to hold it. There's always a flaw, a crack, a detail out of place. And even when everything aligns, when the stars feel right and the silence feels full, the moment passes. Because perfection isn't built to last. It's an ideal, not a destination. A direction, not a place. Philosophers like Plato imagined a realm of perfect forms, unchanging, absolute, untouched by decay. But we live in the world of becoming, not being. A world of growth, error, friction. Life moves, people change. And in that change, perfection crumbles. Perfection suggests a final version, finished, flawless, done. But to be alive is to be unfinished. Always growing, always aching, always adjusting. And yet, we still long for it. We chase perfect love, perfect beauty, perfect meaning. Maybe not because we believe we'll reach it, but because the pursuit gives shape to our lives. It gives us something to strive for, something to define ourselves against. Perfection, then, may not be the goal. It may be the mirror we hold up to our imperfections to see how far we've come. But there's danger in the chase. The obsession with perfection can paralyze. It can stop creation, poison self-worth, ruin relationships. Nothing is ever enough, and enough becomes impossible. So we must ask, is perfect worth more than real? Is flawless more valuable than alive? Maybe the most human thing isn't perfection, but persistence. Not getting it right, but continuing anyway. Maybe beauty lies in the mistake. Maybe truth lives in the crack. And maybe what we call perfect isn't the absence of flaw, but the presence of something whole, honest, and unfinished. Perfection, if it exists, may not be something we achieve. It may be something we feel, for a moment, before it fades, and something we remember long after it's gone. Will we ever know everything? Will we ever know everything? Every law of nature, every hidden truth, every reason behind the questions that keep us awake at night. Humanity has come far. We've split atoms, mapped genomes, landed machines on other worlds. We've pulled back the curtain on the universe and found more stars than grains of sand, more mysteries than answers. And yet, the deeper we dig, the more complex it becomes. Every solved problem births 10 new ones. Every discovery expands the borders of the unknown. Knowledge grows like a horizon, always ahead, always out of reach. Some believe we'll get there eventually, that with time, technology, and enough brilliance, every puzzle will unravel. That the universe runs on rules, and rules can be understood. But others aren't so sure. Some truths may be forever hidden, locked behind limits we'll never cross, buried in dimensions we cannot sense, tangled in questions the human brain was never built to comprehend. Even mathematics, once thought to be the purest form of truth, proved incomplete. Gödel showed us that no system can fully explain itself, that there will always be truths that can't be proven, only felt, only guessed. And consciousness, that flickering light behind your thoughts, may never yield to measurement. Not because it's magical, but because it is too close. We are the question trying to answer itself, the eye trying to see its own back. Still, we keep asking, because the search is not just about facts. It's about wonder, about the ache to understand who we are, where we came from, why any of this exists at all. Maybe we won't know everything, maybe we're not supposed to, but in trying, we become more than animals. We become meaning makers, explorers of the infinite, carriers of questions older than words. And even if we never reach the edge of truth, we move closer to it with every step. Not because we expect to arrive, but because the journey itself is sacred. Because to ask is to exist, and to exist is already part of the answer. Was there a beginning? Was there a beginning? A first spark, a first moment, a boundary where everything changed from nothing into something? Or has existence always been timeless, infinite, without cause or edge? Science points to the Big Bang, the origin of our universe, not as an explosion in space, but as the birth of space itself. Time, matter, energy, all compressed into a single, incomprehensibly dense point. Then it expanded, and that expansion continues today. But what came before the Big Bang? The question might be meaningless, because before implies time, and time itself began at that singularity. There may have been no before, just as there may be no outside to space. Still, we ask. Still, we wonder. Some theories speak of quantum fluctuations, of universes bubbling into existence from a vacuum that is not truly nothing. Others imagine cycles, universes expanding and collapsing endlessly, beginnings layered on endings, time looping back upon itself. And some believe in a cause beyond science, a God, a mind, a prime mover who lit the first flame. But even that pushes the question further. What caused the cause? Where does the chain end, if it ever does? Perhaps there was a beginning, but not a simple one. Not a clean start, like a switch flipped in the dark. Maybe the universe has no clear origin point, only transitions, only thresholds beyond our comprehension. Maybe our minds, built to understand stories with a start and end, cannot grasp a reality with neither. Or maybe the beginning is still happening, the expansion continuing, the laws still unfolding, the story still being written. And maybe the deeper truth is this: whether there was a beginning or not, there is now. This moment, this breath, this fleeting awareness of existence. You were born into a story already in motion, and though you may never know how it began, you carry its echoes in your blood, its fire in your thoughts. The beginning, if it happened, was not just the birth of the universe, it was the first question ever asked. And asking it again now means the story continues. Is it possible to live forever? Is it possible to live forever? To escape the grip of time, to outrun decay, to remain conscious while the world forgets how to change? It's an idea that haunts mythology and science alike. The dream of immortality, the fear of extinction. For most of history, forever was a promise only gods could hold. Humans aged, withered, died, and told stories of those who didn't. Vampires, divine heroes, cursed wanderers. But today, the question is no longer just fantasy. Scientists study aging like a disease, hunting the causes at the cellular level. Telomeres shortening, DNA damage, cellular waste. We slow them, we delay them. But can we stop them entirely? Some believe we might. That with enough breakthroughs, death could be postponed indefinitely. Regenerate organs, rewrite genes, upload minds into machines. If the body fails, maybe the mind can be saved. Maybe consciousness is just data, waiting to be copied, preserved, revived. But what would that mean? If your thoughts could live on in circuits, would it still be you? Or just a reflection? A simulation of a self that once breathed? And even if you kept your body and never aged again, what would forever feel like? Would joy fade? Would meaning disappear without endings? Would time lose its shape, becoming not a path but a prison? We crave immortality because we fear loss, of those we love, of what we've built, of the self we barely understand. But the price of life is death, and the value of each moment comes from knowing it won't return. To live forever might be to lose that, to drift through centuries, unchanged, watching everything you care for vanish one by one. Immortality tempts us with escape, but it also threatens to erase what makes life vivid: urgency, fragility, the beauty of now. Maybe the real question isn't whether we can live forever, but whether we should. Maybe forever isn't a gift. Maybe it's a mirror, showing us what matters precisely because it ends. And maybe the closest thing to immortality isn't endless time, but living so fully, so fiercely, that something of you lasts, even when you don't. Would immortality be a blessing or a curse? Would immortality be a blessing or a curse? The ultimate freedom from death, or the slow erosion of everything that makes life worth living? At first, it feels like a gift. No more fear, no last breaths, no grieving faces or ticking clocks. Time becomes endless. You could learn every language, read every book, watch empires rise and fall from the safety of your ageless skin. But what begins as wonder may soon dissolve into weight. Immortality means watching everything change while you stay the same. Friends grow old and vanish. Lovers become memories. The world forgets your name, then forgets how to pronounce the language it was written in. And still you remain. In time, joy dulls. The extraordinary becomes routine. The magic of first kiss, first sunset, first sorrow, is replaced with repetition. You might become numb, not from pain, but from the absence of endings. And meaning, which is shaped by urgency, begins to fade. What is a moment when you have an eternity? What is love when it no longer risks loss? Even the stars, immortal compared to us, are born to die. Everything in nature is temporary. That's what gives it weight. Immortality breaks that rhythm. It turns life into a loop without closure, a song with no final note. But still, some would choose it, not for pleasure, but for purpose, to keep learning, to protect, to witness, to carry memory in a world that forgets. But even then, eternity demands a cost. Eventually, you must ask, who are you when everyone you loved is gone? When every version of yourself has been outlived? When history becomes noise and your name means nothing? Immortality would not kill you, but it might hollow you. It might turn the self into a shell, drifting through centuries, untethered. So is it a blessing? A curse? Perhaps both. Or perhaps the answer is this, that what makes life precious is not its length, but its limits. That we are not meant to last forever, only to burn brightly while we do. Is time a human invention? Is time a human invention, a system we built to measure the world, or a fundamental part of the universe itself? We count it in seconds, hours, years. We carve it into calendars, mark it with clocks, mourn it with birthdays and gravestones. It feels objective, relentless, unbending, true. But what is it really? Is it out there, ticking through space, or just in here, pulsing through thought? Physicists say time is a dimension, like space, something woven into the fabric of the universe. Einstein showed us that it bends near massive objects, slows with speed, stretches and compresses depending on where you are and how fast you move. In that view, time is not a human creation, it's real. But how we experience it, that is something we made. No animal schedules its grief. No mountain remembers a decade. The past and future are concepts the brain invented. To survive, to plan, to learn. Our minds created timelines because they needed meaning. Because a life without sequence is chaos. But time doesn't always move the way we think. In the quantum world, particles seem to ignore it. In black holes, it may stop entirely. And at the beginning of the universe, time itself may have been born. That means there was once no before, just a moment when before became possible. So perhaps time is both real and invented, a feature of reality and a lens we crafted to see it. We created hours, days, years, but not change, not aging, not the sense that everything moves and nothing stays. What's most human about time isn't how we measure it, but how we feel it. We regret the past, we fear the future, we crave more of it, waste it, beg for it to slow. We write poems to it, we rage against it, we call it a thief and a healer in the same breath. Maybe time was never just about physics. Maybe it's how we make sense of being alive. Not a cage, but a mirror. Not an invention, but an understanding shaped by the very thing it tries to hold. Is anything truly lost? Is anything truly lost, gone forever, erased from existence? Or does every moment leave a trace, every life a shadow that never fully disappears? We speak of loss as final, the photograph burned, the voice forgotten, the love that faded into silence. And yet, the world is made of echoes. Physics tells us that information, once created, cannot be destroyed. That even if matter changes, energy shifts, or memories fade, the imprint remains somewhere, written into the very fabric of reality. The heat from a touch, the ripple in a field, the alignment of particles nudged ever so slightly by something long gone. It might never be found, it might never be read, but it is not unmade. In that sense, nothing is truly lost, only transformed, scattered, hidden. But for us, loss feels real. You lose a friend, a home, a version of yourself that no longer fits. Memories vanish without warning, people disappear without goodbye, and time folds things under so gently you don't even notice until they're gone. And still, something lingers, in dreams, in habits, in the way a scent can pull you years backward. You can't hold what's gone, but you carry its weight. Sometimes in grief, sometimes in gratitude, sometimes in silence. Maybe that's what it means to live, to become a mosaic of what we've lost, held together by memory and meaning. Loss isn't the opposite of presence. It's a kind of presence itself, quieter, softer, but still shaping who you are. Even things you can't remember shape the path that brought you here. Even forgotten words left vibrations in your mind. So is anything truly lost? Perhaps not. Perhaps everything leaves a mark, not always where we can see it, not always in the way we hope, but somewhere in this shifting, aching world, the things we lose become part of what we are. And in that way, maybe nothing and no one is ever truly gone. What is a moment? What is a moment? A passing flicker between the past and the future, or the only place where life ever truly exists. We spend most of our time chasing something just ahead, or holding on to something just behind, barely noticing the thin, fragile sliver of now that holds everything. A moment is not defined by clocks or calendars. It doesn't ask permission or wait for your attention. It arrives, unfolds, and fades in silence. And yet, it is the only place where you can feel, choose, change, or be. Everything you've ever experienced happened inside a moment. Every laugh, every cry, every truth you've ever touched existed for a heartbeat, then vanished. And still, some moments stretch. A kiss, a goodbye, a realization you weren't ready for. Time seems to bend around them. Not because the seconds changed, but because you did. Moments have weight. Not in mass, but in memory. Years disappear into routine. But one brief moment, a glance, a sound, a word, can echo for a lifetime. We speak of moments like they are fragile things, easily lost. But they are also strong. They can change lives, shift beliefs, open wounds, close chapters. One moment can divide who you were from who you'll become. And yet, most pass without notice. We think we're waiting for something big, a sign, a breakthrough, an arrival. But life doesn't hand out meaning like prizes. It hides it in plain sight, in the sound of the wind, in the stillness before you speak, in the realization that this, right now, is all you ever have. The future is imagined, the past is fading, but this moment, this breath, this blink, this quiet thought you're having now, is real, and soon it won't be. That's what makes a moment sacred, not because it lasts, but because it doesn't. And maybe the only way to truly live is to stop waiting for the perfect moment and start noticing the imperfect ones that are already here. Because the moment you're in is the only one that's ever been real, and once it's gone, it never comes back. Can the past be changed? Can the past be changed, not in memory or meaning, but in fact, in time, in the weight of what actually happened? It's a question that haunts both science and sorrow. We all carry moments we wish we could undo. A word we shouldn't have said, a door we should have opened, a choice that echoes louder than it should. And in our minds, we visit those places again and again. Regret is a kind of time travel. So is nostalgia. So is trauma. The past lives inside us, reshaped by emotion, blurred by memory, sometimes rewritten just enough to help us sleep. But what about the real past, the one that happened outside our minds? According to physics, time flows in one direction. Entropy increases. Glass shatters but doesn't unshatter. Smoke rises but doesn't return to the flame. In that sense, the past is fixed, not just remembered, but recorded in the arrangement of atoms, in the unfolding of cause and effect. If you changed it, you would unravel everything that followed. That's why time travel, as we imagine it, collapses under paradox. Change one thing, and nothing remains the same, including the self who went back to change it. But even if we can't change what happened, we can change what it means. Memory is fluid. History is rewritten with every telling. A pain you once ran from might become the reason you grew. A mistake might become the beginning of something wiser. And in that way, maybe the past isn't as solid as it seems. Maybe it isn't about what happened, but what you choose to carry. You cannot go back and speak differently, love better, try harder. But you can carry that desire forward. You can let the past shape you without letting it define you. You can't change the past, but you can change the person who looks back at it. And sometimes, that's enough. Because what matters most isn't whether the past can be changed, but whether you can change in its shadow. Is intelligence measurable? Is intelligence measurable? Something we can assign a number to, capture in a test, reduce to scores that define worth and potential. For over a century, we've tried. IQ tests rank logic, memory, pattern recognition, and speed. They predict academic success, job performance, certain outcomes in life. But do they capture what it means to be truly intelligent? Or just one narrow slice of a much deeper spectrum? Intelligence is not a single light. It's a prism. Linguistic, spatial, emotional, creative, musical, social. You can solve equations with ease and still fail to understand your own emotions. You can write symphonies, but struggle with numbers. You can calm a crying child better than you can recite a fact. IQ doesn't measure wisdom, kindness, intuition, or resilience. It doesn't measure the strength to learn after failure, or the ability to see beauty in chaos. It doesn't measure how well you listen, or how deeply you care. And it certainly doesn't measure how far you might go. Intelligence changes. It grows with struggle. It dims under trauma. It sharpens through experience. A test taken once at age 12 cannot define the limits of a human life. And yet, we love numbers. We love rankings, labels, categories, things that make the uncertain seem solid. We pretend a number tells the story. But intelligence is not static. It's not a gift you're handed at birth, sealed and final. It's a process, a hunger, a shape that bends to your environment, your choices, your belief in yourself. And some kinds of intelligence emerge only in silence, only under pressure, only when no one is watching. Maybe the better question is not whether intelligence can be measured, but why we keep trying to measure it so narrowly. Maybe what matters more is not how smart you are, but how you use what you know. Not what you score, but what you see. And maybe true intelligence isn't something you're born with, but something you build, moment by moment, mistake by mistake, with the quiet fire of someone who refuses to stop learning. Is justice real? Is justice real? Not as a word, but as a force, a presence, something that actually exists beyond our laws, beyond our rituals, beyond our need to believe in balance. We grow up hearing stories where the good are rewarded and the wicked fall, where wrongs are corrected and fairness prevails. But then life happens. The innocent suffer, the guilty thrive, the powerful walk free while the powerless are punished for merely surviving. And we begin to wonder, was justice ever more than a human wish? Philosophers have wrestled with this for centuries. Plato imagined a perfect form of justice, eternal and unchanging, while others saw it as entirely man-made, a tool created to maintain order in societies that might otherwise collapse into chaos. Justice, they say, is agreement, a fragile consensus dressed in robes and rituals to give it weight. But even the best systems are flawed. Bias creeps in. Power distorts truth. What one era calls justice, another names oppression. And yet, we keep reaching for it. Why? Maybe because justice isn't just a law or a verdict. It's a longing, a deep ache in the human spirit that refuses to accept the world as it is. It's the fire behind every protest, every trial, every whisper of, "This isn't right." Justice may not be a thing we can hold. It may not be written into the universe like gravity or time, but it's something we imagine. And in imagining it, we build it, piece by piece, moment by moment, decision by decision. It's in how we treat strangers, how we tell the truth when it hurts, how we listen when we could judge. Justice may not be real in the way stars are real, or blood is real, but maybe it's real in the way love is real, fragile, inconsistent, but deeply felt, and more powerful than it should be. Maybe justice is not something we find. Maybe it's something we become. What is sanity? What is sanity? Is it clarity, control, conformity, or merely the absence of madness? We think we know it when we see it. Someone who behaves normally, who fits the rhythm of the world, who doesn't talk to walls or fear the sun. But look deeper, and the line begins to blur. Sanity is often defined by consensus, by what the majority deems acceptable. Speak to spirits in one culture, you're revered. In another, you're institutionalized. Hear voices in isolation, you're a prophet. Hear them on a subway, and you're ill. So is sanity truth, or is it obedience? Psychologists describe it as mental stability, the ability to function, to distinguish fantasy from reality. But even this is slippery. Some people function just fine while holding deeply delusional beliefs. Others see the world exactly as it is and fall apart under the weight of it. Sanity, then, might not be about truth at all, but about balance, a fragile equilibrium between inner chaos and outer demand. Too much imagination, and you risk psychosis. Too little, and you become mechanical. Sanity walks that tightrope, flexible but grounded, and when it breaks, the fall is terrifying. The mind unravels, thoughts splinter, time bends. The person you once were becomes unreachable. But perhaps the most haunting part is this. We all live near the edge. Grief, trauma, isolation, any of them can push us closer to that boundary. Sanity isn't a fortress. It's a flickering light we protect each day. It's shaped by sleep, by love, by connection, by meaning. It's not just the absence of illness, but the presence of something gentle, coherence perhaps, or hope. So what is sanity? It's the story we tell ourselves that still holds together, the thread we cling to when the world spins too fast, and when it frays. What we need most is not judgment, but kindness, because sanity, like everything human, is never permanent. It's something we keep until we don't. What is hope? What is hope? Is it naivety, survival, or the last light that flickers when everything else goes dark? It's not logic. It's not strategy. It's something quieter, stranger, more resilient. You can't measure it or touch it, but you feel it. A pull forward, even when every part of you wants to give up. Hope doesn't guarantee anything. It doesn't promise results. But it whispers that maybe, just maybe, things can change. And for some reason, that whisper is enough to keep people moving through impossible situations. Through illness, through war, through grief, through silence. Viktor Frankl, who survived the concentration camps, wrote that when a person loses hope, they're already dead, even if their heart's still beating. Because without hope, the future collapses. There's no reason to endure pain if you believe it will never end. Hope bends time. It projects you beyond the suffering of the moment and reminds you that something else could exist, even if it never comes, even if it's just imagined. And that imagined world can save a person. But hope is fragile. It can shatter when betrayed. It can turn bitter, hardened into denial or delusion. Some say too much hope is dangerous. It makes us ignore reality, cling to lies, delay necessary change. But too little is worse. Without it, people become hollow, numb, stuck. Hope isn't blind optimism. It's not ignoring the darkness. It's choosing to believe there's something beyond it, even if you never see it, even if you're the one who has to build it. It's a kind of quiet defiance, a refusal to believe that what is all there will ever be. And that's what makes it so powerful. Empires fall, systems collapse, bodies weaken, but hope can still outlast them. It exists in prison cells, in hospital beds, in refugee camps. It's carried in lullabies, in poems, in revolutions. And maybe the strangest thing of all is that hope doesn't need to be rational to be real. It doesn't care about statistics or odds. It only needs the tiniest crack in the wall, and it will grow there. So what is hope? It's the ember that doesn't go out, the invisible thread you follow when the map is gone. It's not a guarantee, it's a choice. And sometimes, it's the most human choice of all. What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be human? Is it flesh and blood, or thought and wonder? We walk upright, we speak, we build, we destroy, we create things that outlast us and grieve things we never touched. But deeper than biology or intelligence, being human is the strange tension between knowing we're going to die and choosing to live anyway. Other creatures survive, but we imagine, we dream, we tell stories to explain the stars, and we search for meaning in suffering that has none. We look in mirrors and don't just see a face, we see a past, a future, a question. We love people we've never met. We hurt the ones we do. We chase happiness and then mourn it once it's gone. To be human is to be aware, painfully, beautifully aware. Aware of time, of consequence, of what could have been. It means living with contradiction. We crave connection, but fear rejection. We want freedom and structure, solitude and touch. We seek truth, but lie to ourselves when it's too sharp. And in all of this, we keep going. Even when it breaks us, even when we don't know why. Some say being human means being rational. Others say it means being emotional, spiritual, flawed. Maybe it's all of that, or none. Maybe it's the simple, sacred fact that we can suffer and still find joy, that we can be fragile and still show courage, that we can fall apart and somehow rebuild. We laugh in the face of despair. We write poems during war. We carry memories that weigh more than our bodies. What does it mean to be human? It means holding infinite complexity in a single heartbeat. It means being capable of cruelty, but choosing compassion. It means knowing you'll disappear and still planting seeds you'll never see grow. And maybe, just maybe, it means asking this question, even when there's no final answer. Is ignorance bliss? Is ignorance bliss? Or is it just the comfort of not knowing dressed up as peace? We tell ourselves it is because it's easier than facing the weight of truth. There's something warm about not being aware, like staying in bed long after the world has begun to burn, pretending the fire won't reach you. A child who doesn't understand death can laugh while standing beside a grave. A man who doesn't know betrayal can smile without suspicion. And in those moments, ignorance can feel like safety, soft, silent, undisturbed. But that safety is borrowed. It runs out. And when it does, what was hidden comes crashing through. Ignorance may shield you, but it also blinds you. It protects you from discomfort, but also from wisdom. Because to learn is to suffer. To see clearly is to ache. And yet, through that ache comes understanding, the kind that transforms you. The ancient Greeks saw knowledge as dangerous, yes, but also divine. Socrates said the unexamined life is not worth living. The pain of truth, he believed, was worth more than the numbness of illusion. But in the real world, people cling to ignorance like armor. They close their eyes to injustice, to suffering, to themselves. Not because they're cruel, but because they're afraid. Knowing demands change. Knowing forces responsibility. It is easier to look away than to act. Easier to stay asleep than to rise and rebuild. But there is no bliss in a lie once you know it's a lie. There is no peace in darkness once you've glimpsed the light. Ignorance is a house with no windows, safe from the storm, but also from the sky. Bliss, if it exists, isn't in ignorance. It's in the strength to face the storm with eyes wide open, to carry the burden of knowledge and still move forward. So is ignorance bliss? For a moment, perhaps, but it fades. Truth is heavier, but it builds something real. And in the end, it's not the ignorant who sleep best. It's those who have faced the world, survived it, and chosen to keep loving it anyway. Is beauty universal or cultural? Is beauty a universal truth woven into nature, or is it a cultural mirror, shifting with time and place? The question reaches beyond art and appearance. It touches on who we are, what we desire, and why we're drawn to certain faces, forms, and patterns more than others. Some say beauty is hardwired, that symmetry, balance, and proportion are timeless signals of health and harmony. A perfectly shaped shell, a golden ratio face, the glow of a sunset, or the stillness of snow. These are things nearly all humans find beautiful, regardless of language or upbringing. Evolutionary psychology suggests our ancestors who noticed beauty may have been more attuned to fertile partners, safe environments, or edible food, survival hidden beneath aesthetics. But that's not the whole story, because beauty also dances with culture. What one era celebrates, another mocks. In Renaissance Europe, fullness meant wealth and fertility. In modern fashion, thinness became status. Neck rings, tattoos, pale skin, tanned skin, what's seen as beautiful shifts like the tide, sculpted by beliefs, trends, power, and even colonization. Culture decides what beauty means, who has it, and who is excluded from it. It's a tool, sometimes for unity, often for control. And within each culture, it changes constantly. Artists stretch its boundaries. Outcasts redefine it. Every generation rebels against the beauty standards of the last. That rebellion, that refusal to let beauty be boxed, is what makes it so human. So is beauty universal or cultural? It's both. It's biology and storytelling. It's symmetry and symbolism. It's the shape of a mountain and the curve of a letter. It's a newborn's face and an ancient ruin. It's what makes us stop, stare, ache, remember. And maybe that's the real answer. Beauty isn't just in the thing itself. It's in the reaction it awakens in us. A quiet gasp, a feeling of awe, a sense, however fleeting, that something matters. Something is worth holding on to. And whether it's universal or cultural, that feeling, that moment is real. What is love? What is love? Is it chemistry, choice, illusion, or something older than language itself? We use the word so often that it begins to lose its shape, stretched between songs, promises, and heartbreaks. But behind every use of the word, there's a question that doesn't fade. Love is the force that pulls people together for no reason they can fully explain. It's not just a feeling. It's a drive, a need, a vulnerability that exposes you to both joy and devastation. Biologically, love floods the brain with chemicals: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin. It rewards closeness, bonds parent to child, mate to mate, friend to friend. Evolution crafted it to keep us connected. But humans took it further. We wrote poems, carved statues, crossed oceans, and started wars all in the name of it. Love became more than biology. It became belief. And still, it remains unpredictable. It arrives when we don't want it and disappears when we need it most. It can grow slowly or strike like lightning. It can last a lifetime or dissolve in a single word. Some say love is a mirror. It shows you who you are through how you treat another. Others say it's an illusion, a trick of the mind that hides our loneliness. But the truth lies somewhere in between. Love can be selfish or selfless, obsessive or freeing. It can heal or destroy. And that's what makes it so powerful. It's not pure, it's not perfect, but it's real. Real enough to hurt, real enough to fight for, real enough that without it, the world feels colder. Love is in sacrifice and silence. It's in the unspoken glances, the irrational forgiveness, the staying even when everything tells you to run. It's not always grand. Often it's quiet, the way someone listens when you speak, or remembers what you forgot. Love is hard. It requires courage. It asks you to be seen, to be hurt, to be changed. And still, we chase it. Again and again. So what is love? It's what makes life more than survival. It's the answer we keep returning to, even when we can't explain why. What is knowledge? What is knowledge? Is it just facts stored in a brain, or something deeper, something closer to truth? We think we know things. We're taught names, dates, rules, equations. But knowing isn't just remembering. Knowledge is what remains when information survives doubt. It's the difference between memorizing a map and walking the path with your own feet. Philosophers have tried for centuries to define it. Plato called it justified true belief, meaning it must be believed, it must be true, and there must be a reason for that belief. But even that definition falls apart under pressure. What about things you believe for the wrong reasons that happen to be true? What about luck, coincidence, illusion? René Descartes doubted everything, even his own senses, until he arrived at one solid point. I think, therefore I am. But what about everything beyond that? David Hume said our mind is just a bundle of perceptions, fleeting, scattered, connected by habit, not certainty. And in today's world, with infinite data at our fingertips, the line between knowledge and noise is thinner than ever. So what makes something knowledge? Is it tested by evidence, accepted by consensus, or felt in your bones, like grief or love, or the weight of a memory? Maybe knowledge is layered. There's the surface, things you've heard, then deeper, things you've seen, and at the core, what you've lived. Knowledge isn't just what you hold, it's what changes you, what redefines how you see the world. It's why touching fire teaches faster than being warned. It's why trauma becomes wisdom and pain becomes perspective. Knowledge grows when you're wrong, not when you're right, and the wisest people often admit how little they know. Socrates said that was the beginning of real knowledge, realizing your ignorance. So what is knowledge? It's not certainty, it's not pride. It's a path, walked with humility, curiosity, and the willingness to be wrong. It's less about having answers and more about asking better questions. And the moment you believe you know everything, that's when real knowledge begins to slip away.